Hello and welcome back to the channel. I'm Leslie Welsh1 and today I'm going to be explaining to you about the new F126 cars, the major changes, and try the first version of Racing Studios Formula Hybrid 2026 on a few tracks. These include the new 2026 Madrid Street Circuit and the 2028 Qiddiya Speed Park, with its already famous Blade Turn 1 that stands 70 meters in the air over a live concert venue. This is a long one, so grab a drink, sit back, and let's get into it. So, F1 in 2026. What are the big changes? Well, to start, we have the car chassis. So, say goodbye to ground effect, porpoising, and of course DRS. Used for the first time by Jenson Button and the last time by Kimi Antonelli, DRS has now gone the way of the dodo. The aerodynamic concept of the cars has shifted significantly. The little wheel brows are gone, the cars are 20 centimeters shorter, 10 centimeters narrower, and the minimum weight has dropped from 800 kilos down to 768 kilograms, but a 4% decrease. The huge ground effect tunnels in the floors that everyone scurried to hide are gone, replaced by flatter, narrower floors with an extended diffuser with much bigger openings. This will mean the cars will need to raise their ride height and should give much wider range of setups to teams and drivers. Hopefully no plankwear disqualifications this year, looking at you McLaren, Ferrari and Mercedes for the last 2 years. So all this sounds good, but we have two more changes to talk about. First, the tyres. Yes, we will be seeing the 18-inch Pirelli rubber for a few more years still. However, the front tyres will be 25mm narrower and the rear's 30mm. This does reduce drag on the cars and leads directly into the final big change, active aerodynamics. Yes, you hear that right, active aerodynamics. Movable wings are now part of the regulations, and not just to close loopholes by very clever designers within teams. This means we won't be hearing teams saying, oh, their rear wing bends back too much, or their front wing is basically flat at high speeds. The drivers will be able to choose if the wings are open or closed, though in the interest of safety, there will be automatic turn-off zones. So, for example, Turn 1 at Suzuka would be one of those, preventing a repeat of Jack Doohan's crash from last year, turning in at well over 300 kilometers an hour with the rear wing still wide open after doing it in a simulator. The other big changes we have to talk about is the power unit. The 1.6-litre V6 internal combustion engine remains, but is now running on fully sustainable fuels that have been used and tested in Formula 2 and Formula 3 during 2025. This is made up from sources such as carbon capture, municipal waste, and non-food biomass, all independently certified to meet strict standards. The turbo remains, however the NGUH that was connected to it is gone. While this did remove turbo lag and generate a lot of the electrical energy, it was deemed too costly and complex, and instead a simpler but more powerful NGUK will be used. During the previous version of these engines, it was a maximum of 160 horsepower from the hybrid system, but this year will be around 470 horsepower. That's almost a 300% increase in electrical power alone. The battery capacity will remain at 4 megajoules, but the amount they can recharge each lap has increased dramatically. Instead of 2 megajoules per lap, they'll be able to harvest as much as 9 megajoules. With no limit on the amount of SOC, or state of charge, that can be used during a lap, this means drivers can use almost 13 megajoules of energy in a single fly-in lap. This takes us on to the new power modes drivers can use: recharge, boost, and overtake. Recharge will be mostly done automatically, but where it gets more involved for the driver is in the lift-off regen. Something you would have heard on the Ferrari team radios a lot last year is the term LICO, or lift off and coast. While this saves fuel and saved on plankwear for Ferrari, next year doing so will help with increasing the SOC, including with partial throttle lift off. Think of it like an electric car's one-pedal driving, except going a lot faster. Next, we have boost mode. This is similar to the current overtake button drivers have now, except they can use it as much as they want, as long as they have the battery to use it. This will be used a lot with both defending and overtaking. Then we have overtake, which replaces DRS. With these new regulations, the energy deployment will start to taper off after 290 km an hour, reaching zero deployment at 355 km per hour. When you're within 1 second of the car ahead at the detection point, which will usually be at the final corner of the lap, you can then use it once on the following lap. When it's activated, it enables a different deployment map, which gives full deployment up to 337 km per hour before tapering off. Combining this with boost mode, recharge, and active aero, it's going to make a big difference in how drivers plan their overtakes. It's going to allow people like Fernando Alonso, Lewis Hamilton, and Max Verstappen to use their skill and experience to create overtakes where you will not expect them. To go with all the regulation changes, we also have team and manufacturer changes. Alpine will no longer produce a power unit for F1 and will be powered by Mercedes, replacing their supply to Aston Martin, who will now use Honda power. Red Bull and Racing Bulls will be powered by their own Red Bull Ford powertrains. But what about the two new teams in F1? Well, Cadillac will use Ferrari power for the next 2 years, moving to their own power unit in 2028, while Audi, who took full control of Sauber F1, will use... Enough of me talking about the cars. Let's hit the track and compare the lap times in a standard setup with the F1 2023 car. Now, before I go any further, I just want to mention that the Formula Hybrid 2023 I drove previously and the Formula Hybrid X 2026 that I am driving today were both made by Race Sim Studios. They have a wide range of race car recreations from Formula Cars, WEC, IndyCar, and more. They're not sponsoring this video in any way, shape, or form, but I want to shout out their amazing work in creating these highly detailed cars. First up is Monza, and of course a note. I am not an F1 driver. While I know how to drive and race in real life and on simulators, I am not a professional. This is also the first version of the Race Sim Studios 2026 car, which will get updates and be much better later in the year after they get data from the teams. Now, in the Formula Hybrid 2023, I did a 1:25.765, just under 5 seconds off Carlos Sainz's pole time for that year. With a bit of practice, I was able to get the Formula Hybrid X 2026 down to a 1:27.733, just under 2 seconds off my previous time. The car felt good, though understeer built quickly in the two Lesmos and was a little more skittish over the curbs than with the 2023 car. Coming out of the low-speed Variante della Rettifilo, turns 1 and 2, you notice a deployment in the first few gears, going from 2nd to 6th in seconds, but you must respect the throttle. Otherwise, you'll spin the rear tyres up at a moment's notice. Given how many times I've driven this track in all manner of games and simulators, it seemed the perfect start point to learn the basics of how the car felt. Now, you would have seen me show the new Madrid Madring in a previous video, and I did note that while it was fun to drive in the 2023 cars, the new regulations with smaller cars would give it a different feel. So now I can give you my full thoughts on the 20-turn 5.474km Madring. In the F123 car, I managed a 133.980, with using DRS where I expected it to be due to no DRS zones decided. I did the same with the 2026 car and was just under 2.2 seconds slower, but accounting for where the auto off zones would most likely be. While it did feel like I had more space around the car, some parts were much trickier to handle, mainly the braking zones. Even missing a braking zone by a couple of meters meant you were in the wall, not making use of the runoff. Of course, this is also a V1 of the car, like I said earlier, and we haven't seen how teams will improve during the season, but I do think we will get at least some good racing. I very, very much doubt it will be a Monaco procession. Our final track of this video is Qiddiya Speed Park, a total of 21 turns, 6.1 kilometers in length, and a turn 1 that sits 70 meters in the air, known as the Blade. This will be the track that replaces the Jeddah Corniche circuit when it is completed in 2028. There is a large mix of flowing turns, along with 3 DRS zones, which aren't quite accurate on this version, with the DRS board appearing just before the pit exit. Now, of course, this isn't a laser scan version of the track, but gives a good impression of what it will likely be when completed. You can tell very quickly that the track was designed with the previous regulations in mind. With the 2023 car, you can carry more speed, have more confidence on the brakes, and can attack the corners with ease. The 2026 car is very different. Turn 2 is a prime example. I'm able to take it flat out in the 2023 car and brake in time to make the apex at turn 4 for the next straight. Not in the 26 car. While you are at a similar speed, you need to lift off just before turning and then change down, waiting till after the apex to start picking up the throttle before hitting the brakes again after a short dash to the next braking zone. Of course, they won't be making any major changes to the track. While it is only just over a third of the way there, it would mean delays and potentially missing out on its race slot in 2028. Now, I did also spend some time with 2026 car at the Red Bull Ring before Madrid and Qiddiya. Now, while I struggle with this track, I want to try and get a sense of the car with the changing elevation and corner types. To me, the car felt overly skittish at most corners, either feeling like the rear was on ice and spinning, locking a front wheel, or running too much engine braking, causing a rear lockup and again, spinning. It was much more difficult to get any real consistency with the car there in turns 1, 3 and 4, not finding a rhythm at all. With the higher speeds of turns 7 to 10, however, you could feel how the car was reacting and able to push more and more till you were close to the limit, even using a lot of curbs. So, what can we expect from the Madrid Ring, Qiddiya and F126? Well, there will be a lot of mistakes. Not just the rookies, but everyone. You have a lot more to think of with the engine braking, NGUK harvesting, SOC management, boost and override modes, and active aero, all while having less mechanical grip from the narrower tyres and less aerodynamic grip with the loss of the ground effect. But at the same time, this also means excitement. New regulations mean a reset, learning how to set the car up, where the limits are, how you develop the car, and where drivers can adapt and use that experience the best. If you believe the rumours, Mercedes will come out to the blocks in the first place, running away with things at the start of the year. Red Bull have a completely new PU, while Aston Martin have the wisdom of legendary designer Adrian Newey at the helm. We won't know the pecking order until after the checkered flag in Australia on the 8th of March, though we will get to see the car's testing in February at Bahrain between the 11th and 13th, and also the 18th and 20th of February. I'm confident there'll be pictures from the private test at Barcelona that all the teams have between the 26th and the 30th of January. Let me know your thoughts on the two tracks, my take on the next car, and what you think will happen this season in the comments below. Drop a like if you enjoyed this video and hit subscribe not to miss out on the next video. Thanks for watching.